Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathy and today I'm making a background plus university application tips video. I decided to film this video to provide some personal insights into the application process and also just to provide you guys some information on my personal backgrounds that got me into universities such as Brown University, UCLA, USC, and CMU. For your personal reference, here are some of the schools that I got into. And equally, I also got rejected by many schools with the same background, and here are some of them. So this kind of brings me to a disclaimer that I want to address before anything proceeds. All of these background about me worked personally for me for some of these universities, but that's not to say that it's a perfect formula or the theorem to success in terms of university application. And furthermore, this brings me to a second really important note is that I recognize that I'm very privileged. My application process is definitely made easier because of the privileges that I have. My family is wealthy enough for me to go to a private international high school in Shanghai, whereby I have access to a lot of different resources, and I was really able to take advantage of these resources. During my high school years, I was really able to focus completely on my academics and really making myself stand out for top universities. Just take that into consideration when you're viewing my backgrounds. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, get into it!
So now moving on to the second section, which is all about me, because don't we love that? I'm just gonna be annoying and just talk about myself for like 3 minutes, but I guess that's kind of what you expected from a background video for university applications. So I'm a first generation American, but I moved back to China when I was like around a year old, and ever since then I grew up here, and since year 5 I've been enrolled in like different international schools, but they basically prepare you to study abroad. And even though I have American citizenship, I was technically within the international student pool, so that kind of works differently from domestic students. And moving on to the academics aspect of my applications, so the high school course that I've taken is the IB diploma, which, if you don't know, basically requires you to take 6 subjects. Usually people do 3 higher levels and 3 standard levels, and that is what I did. And for information, these are the classes that I took for my IB. So in terms of the IB academics, I applied to all of my schools with the predicted grade of 45 out of 45, both my ED, REA, and also my RD schools. Now, in terms of standardized tests, I only took the SAT and I took it 3 times, and my final grade was a 1530. You should really look at your school's like SAT standardized test scores and look at the percentile to decide whether or not you want to submit your grade. I actually did submit all my grades to all my non-test optional schools. In terms of the extracurriculars I've taken, before I go into like my specific case, I do have a really important tip that I really want to convey, and it's the fact that quality is always over quantity. And I feel like admission officers really do like it when you paint like a really vivid image of yourself through these activities and extracurriculars that you do. So I feel like it's really important to have like a common theme or like wider message between all of these activities. Like they should really link to something that speaks something really strongly about you. So personally for me, my buzzwords were global citizen, a feminist, passionate about environment. Some of the most significant activities on my list includes the Thrift Flip Fashion Sustainability Club that I started with my friends. Basically a club where we renovate old clothing into like newer fashion statement pieces while also simultaneously advocating for sustainable and green fashion. I also participated in this prefecture that my school has to offer, and I was in the Global Citizenship Prefecture, and basically it's like a student leadership team where we advocate for like sustainability, intercultural understanding, service, social justice. I was part of this prefecture since like my junior year of high school, and I continue doing this all the way up to my senior year. So having something like this really shows a lot of commitment that you're willing to do, and it shows how you impact your school community. In my last tenure as a global citizenship prefect, I also took on the specific role of being the leader for a conference called the One Voice Summit that my school hosts on an annual basis. Basically, we educate other people about the sustainable development goals, and this was also another activity on my list. So it was kind of like hitting two birds up with one stone, being an organizer of such a big summit. And lastly, I am also a club leader of the Hack the Sky Club, which is a feminist club in my school. I originally attended this club as a club member since my sophomore year, and I basically became the leader of the club through junior and senior year. This club basically started off as a club that advocates for period poverty, but now expands to like everything regarding gender equality, and we do a lot of our work by educating in school through like school assembly or workshops, and also having fundraisers, for example, photo booth and letter writing event in my junior year of high school, where we raised money and donated it to an international organization called Educating Girls of Rural China to send girls from rural China to school. Now moving on to some of the summer camps I attended from my junior to senior summer. I only attended 2 pre-college programs, and one of them is Yale Young Global Scholars and the other is a Harvard Secondary School program. So YYGS is basically a summer camp organized by Yale, and I attended the Solving Global Challenges sector group. We learned about like things to do with like sustainability, service, and like international social justice issues, and it was very much like seminars, workshop, and discussion based, and I personally really enjoyed it. Next is the Harvard Secondary School program, which I enrolled in like a environmental justice, politics, governance, and like policy making course. I actually wanted to do the sustainable fashion one, but that one actually clashed with YYGS, and unfortunately I was not able to do it. But this course was actually really interesting, despite the fact that I don't actually have such a passion for politics and governance. Yeah, I feel like this course was actually really rewarding, and I learned a lot just by doing the readings and watching the lectures and hearing the discussion from like the students. Okay, now moving on to section C, where I apply all of the concepts and ideas I talked about to the specific case studies of Brown and the UCs of why I think the applications were successful. For Brown, I applied RD. Honestly, it was one of my highest reach schools on my list, and I did not expect to get in because RD is a lot more competitive than EDs, and considering the fact that my ED and REA was unsuccessful, just taking the case of Pomona versus Brown, for example, I applied ED2 for Pomona, which has like a much higher acceptance rate than Brown's RD, but I got rejected by Pomona but got into Brown. I feel like this is a prime example of like how chance and also your fit for the school really matter. I feel like the biggest tip I can give is definitely, because there is the video portfolio that's specific to Brown and some like other universities such as WashU. I feel like making the video good and really something that is very unique is very important for the application process, because and it kind of just showcases you from a different like angle. Quoting directly from Brown's website, the video portfolio gives you an opportunity to tell them more about yourself in your voice beyond the information you provided in your application. So the key things I want to stress from this requirement is that it is beyond the information you provided in your application and also conducted in your voice. You're not really supposed to regurgitate anything that you have already put into your application, especially don't flaunt your like academic achievements just because your transcript will speak for you. Okay, moving on to the UCs. I feel like a large reason why my UC applications were pretty successful is because I was genuinely passionate about the essays that I wrote, and I think I did quite a good job with them. They were actually the first ever essays I've written for any colleges because essay titles really stood out to me. Also, this is actually the same with the Brown video portfolio. I was so excited to make the video, and that kind of just shows you that the school really is for you. For the UCs, obviously you have a choice between the different titles, and the titles I personally chose were the first one being the creative side title, And this one I wrote about my passion for fashion ever since a young age, but I realized that it's actually a toxic habit to always buy a lot of clothing and throwing them away when they're out of trend, and the whole issue of sustainable fashion that I've encountered, and how I made the conscious effort to create a club, the Thriftlet Club, to mitigate such issues. So it kind of ties in my hobbies, interests, and the community actions that I've been doing. So I feel like the essay worked out really well. The next prompt that I chose is about the education opportunity and like educational barriers I have faced. And this one I talked about the One Voice Summit previously mentioned for the JC prefect. And I talked about how COVID prevented us to conduct these conferences that's supposed to happen in real life offline, and we had to switch to Zoom, and like the things that I've learned from this process, and also how actually Zoom might be a better alternative. And the next prompt is the academic subject that inspires you. I really suggest you guys to write this prompt because it works out really well for your Y major essays that you're likely going to write for a lot of the other colleges. And this essay about the academic subject that inspires you can simply be used for your Y major essays. And a big tip for the application process is to recycle your essays. For this one, I wrote about environmental studies, and like I also talked about the GC prefecture and how like it was the main reason why I became interested with environmental studies, and like the summer courses and the extra stuff I've done over the years to really prepare myself into this potential major in college. And then lastly, I chose the community essay about like how I made my school or my community a better place. And I talked about Half the Sky, and more specifically the International Women's Day photo booth as like a bridge into the bigger idea of this club. So now moving on to the final section of this video, which is some of my personal insights and pro tips in terms of the college application process. The most important takeaway from me is that really apply to schools that fits you. I cannot emphasize this more, and I feel like everyone talk about this, but obviously it's really hard to completely disregard prestige. But literally coming from someone who is going to be attending the Ivy League, prestige was and will always be a large consideration, the list of schools that you're going to apply to. But do choose schools, even though prestigious or not, schools that really fits your vibe and your values and what you're interested in. You're literally paying so much tuition fee to go to uni for 4 years, and it's like a one of a lifetime undergrad opportunity. You really don't want to end up somewhere that you absolutely dread. So really watch vlogs on YouTube, really familiarize yourself with like the vibe and like the student body, and go on like websites like Unigo, go on like Reddit to really familiarize yourself with the university while you're doing university research and really creating that list of schools that you want to apply to. Next is with all of the extracurriculars and the essays that you write, really try to paint a vibrant picture of yourself. So having these buzzwords I think is really important, and it just makes you a better candidate because these admission officers are probably going to remember you because you had such a clear like image painted. Next, I know this is like emphasized by everyone, but time management is key.
That is correct, shorty.
In high school, junior and senior year, you're going to be super busy, and for like those of you who are taking the IB, you are probably going to be sleep deprived, working on those IAs and EE deadlines, and also revising for your test during your senior year. So I really suggest you guys to really utilize your summers really well to prep for these standardized tests, to go over school content that you're still struggling on, and also get head start on writing these applications. And lastly, to end on a more heartwarming and encouraging note, don't let any of the college results discourage you, because I promise you will end up somewhere that you're happy with, and even if you're not happy, there's always a chance to transfer. And really try not to stress out so much during the application process. Obviously, it's very easy for me to say now, after my application season has ended. Like honestly, just don't give up until the last minute, because you never know what's coming for you in the future, and you know, the best really is yet to come, and just try to keep a chill and positive mindset throughout the whole of your senior year, and everything will work out just fine. So that's all I have for this video, and I hope this video was insightful and provided some good tips and just like help you with your application process, and all the best for you, and yeah, bye!